It was in this spirit that Miss Nightingale now began to train herself for her life work. It is hard for you children of today to imagine what nursing was in the early part of the 19th century. To you, a nurse means a trim, alert, cheerful person in spotless raiment who knows just what to do when you are ill and does it in the pleasantest possible manner. You are glad when she comes into the room, sorry when she leaves. But this pleasant person did not exist in those days except in the guise of a Catholic sister of charity. The other nurses were for the most part coarse and ignorant women, often cruel, often intemperate. When you read Martin Chuzzlewit, you will find out more about them than I can tell you. But Martin Chuzzlewit was not written when Miss Nightingale determined to find out the condition of nursing in England and on the continent. She first spent some months in the London hospitals and then visited those in Scotland and Ireland. She was horrified at what she found there, dirt and misery and needless suffering among the patients, drunkenness and ignorance and brutality among the nurses. Then she turned to the continent and found a very different state of things. The hospitals were clean and cheerful, and the Sisters of Mercy in their white caps and aprons were as good and kind and capable as our trained nurses today. Up to this time, these good sisters had been the only trained nurses in Europe. But in Germany, Miss Nightingale found a Protestant sisterhood which was working along the same lines, and in a more enlightened and modern way. These were the Deaconesses of Kaiserwerth, the pupils of Pastor Fleidner. This good man, one of the best men surely that ever lived, was the son of a Lutheran minister. His father was poor, and Theodore had to work his way through college, but this he did cheerfully, for he loved work. He studied very hard and also gave lessons, sawed wood, blacked boots, and did other odd jobs. When his clothes began to wear out, he sewed up the holes with white thread all he had, and then inked it over. He loved children, and on the long tramps he used to take in vacation time, he was always collecting songs and games and teaching them to children. When he was 22 years old, Theodore Fleidner became pastor of a small Protestant parish at Kaiserwerth on the Rhine. The people were so poor that they could do little either for their church or themselves. So the young pastor set out on foot to seek aid from other Christian people. He traveled in Germany, Holland, and England, and everywhere people felt his goodness and gave him help. In London he met Elizabeth Fry, and the noble work she was doing among the prisoners at Newgate made a deep impression on him. He determined to do something to help the prisoners in Germany, especially the poor women, who, after being imprisoned for a certain time, were cast upon the world with no possession save an ill name. In his little garden stood an old summer house, partly ruinous, but with strong walls. With his own hands the good pastor mended the roof and made the place clean and habitable. He put in a bed, a table, and a chair, and then prayed that God would send to his shelter some poor soul who needed it. One night a homeless, outcast woman came to the door, and the pastor and his wife bade her welcome and took her to the clean, pleasant room that was all ready. In this humble way opened the now famous institution of Kaiserwerth. Other poor women soon found out the friendly shelter. In a short time a new and larger building was needed, and more helping hands beside those of the good pastor and his devoted wife. The good work grew and grew. Some of the poor women had children, and so a school was started. The school must have good teachers, and so a training school for teachers was opened. But most of all, Pastor Fleidner wished to help the condition of the sick poor. 3 years after the first opening of the summer house shelter in the garden, he founded the Deaconess Hospital. We are told that it was opened practically without patients and without deaconesses. He obtained the use of part of a deserted factory and begged from his neighbors old furniture and broken crockery, which he mended carefully and put in the big empty rooms. He had only 6 sheets, but there was plenty of water to wash them, and when the first patient, a poor, suffering servant maid, came to the door, she was made comfortable in a spotless bed in a clean though bare room. I wish I could tell you the whole beautiful story, but it would take too long. By the end of the year, there were 60 patients in the hospital and 7 deaconess nurses to care for them. Today, there is a deaconess hospital or home in almost every town in Germany, and thousands upon thousands of sick and poor people bless the deaconesses, though they may never have heard the name of Pastor Fleidner.